Hi, everybody. Here we go. I'm going to go straight into this. Everybody's here. Everybody's on camera. Everybody's ready to go. Look at this. Welcome to the first time I've ever had guests on this show, which is crazy because, I think it's the only show that's solo. So for how many months now, it's just been the Danotage show. So I feel very vain and very self-conscious about everything I do, and I'm absolutely okay with it because that's just how it goes. But we're gonna get this started. We're actually gonna get started. Hi everybody, welcome everybody. Thanks to the lovely people in the mods talking about mod appreciation and stuff. Guys, I hope you guys are still hanging out, having a good time. If not, well, I mean, have fun. All right, here we go. Welcome to an all-new episode of Dan's Stream of Thought, the podcast that decided it's a good idea to try to figure out how to make Zoom and Discord and voice and group chats all work about 20 minutes before the episode actually started. I know kind of how it goes. I know the techie stuff and said, hey, hubris is going to not defeat me today. It almost did, though. I'm joined by a few lovely people that I've known for quite a long time. I've worked alongside, I've worked with, I've chatted with. We've spent time in planes together, going to all kinds of mysterious lands, doing even more work and setting up stuff and breaking up stuff and entertaining and there's a time where I've spent a time in Ark, maybe betraying this other person, and then these things have happened. I'm joined here by at SirSlaw _, because forget the guy with the upper score. I don't know who that is.
Of course.
SirSlaw _ on Twitter. You're SirSlaw on Instagram?
SirSlaw on everything else but Twitter.
Gotcha.
Twitter's the only one.
SirSlaw on Instagram. I'm joined by SirSlaw. Hi,
it sucks.
Buddy. How are you?
Hello.
The new CTO of Online Performers Group, which is a lovely management
it's very
company.
Crazy.
They're
all right.
They're all right. I heard I don't know. They manage a bunch of weirdos. I don't know. You guys got to get your act together.
Weirdos is putting it lightly.
I'm also joined by at PodsofWar, I believe on all platforms, correct?
Yeah, on everything.
On all platforms.
So jealous.
PodsofWar.
You gotta pick your name right, Slaw.
Talk about anything else besides this?
Senior account manager over at Online Performers Group and
hello,
host of GameStop TV.
That's right.
Which is crazy.
Hey, wait, I have a sound.
It's still crazy to me.
You guys can't hear it, but
doing
there's
that for a
clapping
while
in the
now.
background now.
Oh.
Yay.
Yeah, we can't hear it.
Hello,
everyone.
We're doing this very by the hip, shooting from the hip today, because, well, I mean, let's be honest. This is a topic that I think is non-defined as, well, it's defined, but many in different ways so that nobody sticks on one specific definition. And I've had conversations with both these lovely people about this a lot, and it's a very complicated topic, but simple when you put it in the way hopefully we can do today. So if you guys don't know, the show is about teaching. It's about talking. It's about having something just flow out. So anything you guys want to talk about today, anything you guys want to bring in, we're going to just chat about it. So we're talking about engagement. I'm going to open it up to whoever wants to go first. What is a basic definition of engagement?
I think that there is no way to actually nail that, which is a fantastic way to start this, I'm sure. But there's really not. And I think that's probably the best way to start, is to just make sure everyone is aware that everything you hear myself or Dan or Pod say here is very much going to be our own opinions of this. And a lot of it is obviously based upon, experiences that we've shared and everything. So there's some statistical validity to it, but most people, if you ever hear them talking about engagement with either social media or in particular Twitch and live streaming, take it with a grain of salt or a pound of salt, or just cover it in salt.
Like most.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And like my definition of like what I think is good engagement is going to be different than like, let's say like a sponsor or even like a data analyst or like any of us. We're all going to have different ideas on it.
Yeah. And I think all three of us, while we stem from streaming as the perspective of what we have, I think we still branch out in different like actual worlds, like entire universes really. Which is why I very much wanted both of you on. We've been trying to get this together for a few weeks, and all three of us are very busy, and it just kind of gets crazy. In fact, sometimes I forget to plan this show. No, it's not your fault at all. It's I go through the same thing. I forget to plan this show, and I go, oh, there's 20 minutes before the show starts. What are we talking about today? Because I'll get messages in Discord from the lovely mods here in StreamerSquare, and they're like, oh, what are you talking about today? I'm like, that's a great question. But engagement is something that I've actually planned for a while. I've been thinking about it for a good long time, and I very much have been thinking about getting SirSlaw and PodsofWar together right here. I didn't want to do this specific episode without these two particularly, because so for those who don't know, there's a big reason why SirSlaw is the CTO now of OPG is because the tech that he develops and puts together is based on engagement. Would you say that's pretty correct? Most things are pretty much at the core about engagement that you've developed for streamers?
Yeah, pretty much everything. Well, yes, the short answer. The long answer would be something along the lines of, I don't even know if you can build technology for streamers that's not centered around engagement, because that's kind of the entire point, you know?
But people do it, right? They do it without maybe the thought of engagement being the forefront, maybe as like third, tertiary or secondary.
Yeah, it depends on how you define it, right? Like I in my mind, engagement is defined as anything that is going to encourage someone to, be like a reoccurring visitor, or to retain, or to send multiple messages, whatever it is. Pretty much every tool out there, the premise at the end of the day, the root problem it's trying to solve is probably something to help one of those things, like get more engagement. Even if it's not really intended, that's really what streamers are going to use it for, you know?
Yeah, and totally, 100%. It's I mean, it goes like three different avenues, right? The developer develops something, the content creator has to then utilize it some way, and then the engager has to, I mean, they don't really have to, but it's how they engage with it. So you have three different avenues coming on here. And then Pods, you have this unique perspective on not only knowing what streaming is and knowing what it is to be in front of a camera, but also having clients that they're going through a campaign, they're getting what they need to do in their campaign, and then seeing the results both numerically and with whoever the sponsor is, and seeing their feedback on it, or seeing literally the click-throughs and numbers. What does that kind of what do these stats kind of tell you?
Yeah, it's super interesting, like seeing what works and what doesn't. And I think what's also interesting is that like so what I see it from is, like, in case you guys don't know, I'm a senior account manager here at Online Performers Group. So I work with a lot of streamers like Dan, and Cole actually used to be one of them till he came over to the dark
Cole
side.
got let go.
And then they dropped me.
Cole got let go. He's not a client anymore, man.
Sucks.
Got to give him the noose there. Just bye.
Anyway.
Yeah, so like what I'm acting as is sort of the bridge in between like the streamers and the sponsors. And a lot of times I feel like sponsors have these certain ideas, like they want to throw in a lot of app mentions, they want to throw in a lot of hashtags, a lot of links, which can actually like bring down the overall engagement of a post. So I'm excited to talk about that a little bit, and see like what's working versus what we notice hasn't been working. But like, how do we find that middle ground between like keeping the sponsor happy and then also like the streamers still feeling like they have their authentic voice and not feeling bad that like, oh, I did this post the way the brand wanted it and I got like, 50% less reactions than I thought I was going to get or I usually get.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny because that's like a meme, right? People think that working with a sponsor can be the one extreme end is like, oh man, you're just like shilling out and you're selling out or whatever, and everything is just a hashtag ad everywhere. But in reality, like that's what sponsors actually ask for sometimes, and that's kind of scary because that does not go over well with audiences. So like Pods has a really good point. Finding that fine line of, well, what do sponsors feel like their need is in the traditional business space versus what does my community need to be engaged, right? Like that's hard. Like OPG does crazy stuff. It's wild, man.
We try our best, and like we do push back when there's things like that. Like thinking just recently, there was one brand who wanted to do like 2 links in the same tweet. And it's like, it's already hard enough to get someone to click on one link. Like you're asking them to leave the platform that they're browsing. Like you're going down Twitter, right? And unless you're on a PC with like multiple tabs, like that person is leaving Twitter to go somewhere else. And then there's just like conflicting messages. There's conflicting call to actions. Like, let's go visit this website and then also this website. So like, that's not really a great strategy. I don't know why they do that. We push back on that a little bit.
And naturally so. I think you guys I'm sure you've seen some of the stuff on Twitter, like where people will talk about, oh, you only want to have so many hashtags or links or whatever in your tweets. And it's true. And I was talking to someone recently, I don't remember who, and we were talking about like even just one hashtag in a tweet can end up resulting in an 85% reduction in engagement on that tweet. 85%.
Yeah.
That is insane for one hashtag. One.
But here's the thing, like, we don't need hashtags anymore. Not on Twitter.
No, not on
like,
Twitter.
You needed a hashtag in the past because there wasn't a way to search Twitter, but now Twitter is fully searchable. So like, I don't know why they exist.
Not only
they're
is
just
Twitter
a remnant from a
fully
bygone era.
Well, yeah, exactly. But not only is Twitter fully searchable, but I think they actively work against, like Twitter itself actively works against hashtags. They kind of do it for you, right? They try to make the engagement for you, and knowing the platform is incredibly important for that. I think Christy from Raw Fury now, former streamer, she still streams I think a little bit too, but Christy is pretty much the go-to when I have an engagement question or like what's the best practice and stuff like that, because she really knows her stuff. And that, yeah, she's very much said those very specific things, which is like putting too much will lower that engagement or stuff like that. And that's very much looking at how many people are clicking through to something. And I think on the business end, that's definitely what people are looking for, like what you're saying about simply what a sponsor wants. And I should say that it's probably pretty important to talk about the fact that what OPG does is about managing the clients rather than which is extremely different, and we'll probably talk about this on a legal episode of some sort, than an agency, especially here in California, because an agent's going to go after companies and just try to get as much money in as they can for their clients, whereas you guys over at OPG are there to make sure that your clients are being protected and making sure that their content is what they want rather than what a sponsor wants. And when you guys talk about the engagement, I think you guys see that from a different perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong, that says, I want them to do what they want to do because that's probably going to get the most engagement, not whatever somebody else tells you to do, especially if it's not with their brand.
Yeah, 100%. I like the content creators that we work with, they know how to build a community. They know how to get a message across. Versus like these brands, whether it's a game or a non-endemic brand, like they need that person to get a message across. That's why they're working with them. And so really like the content creators should be trusted on how to do that in the best way, or else it's just going to like stand out. It's going to feel weird. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, you guys are the experts, really.
If it's not, I mean, yeah, if it's not from the mouth of the creator, it's not going to feel natural, right?
Yeah. I have this like strange example of like, this isn't like Twitch or video games at all, but there was this girl on Broadway and she had this Instagram and like everything was like 1-word captions and it was like all lowercase, like emoji and then like 1-word lowercase. And then there was some drama. She got kicked off Broadway or something. She left abruptly. She posted a photo with like a full paragraph in like perfect grammar of like, thank you so much, blah blah blah. And now there's this whole conspiracy theory of like everyone being like, that was her management, like that wasn't her. Are they holding her hostage? Like, where is she? Because they could tell that that was not her voice.
Right.
Like, your audience knows you so well.
Yep. Honestly, more than I think the creators do.
Yeah.
Because you're
totally.
like, no, there was that time where you didn't do this, and I'm sitting there going, I don't remember that. So I have to trust you because you're the one watching it. So I don't just sit there and watch every piece of my content either. Although streamers out there, watch a little bit of your content, know what you're doing right and wrong.
Yes, that's a huge piece of advice that no one actually does, but everyone talks about it.
It's hard.
That response. That's the response.
I don't want to watch myself. I was there the whole time.
Yes, you have to. You have to. It sucks, but you have to.
Yeah. A big part of that is like, so I've been editing my videos. I mean, been taking my streams and editing them again, and very much even to this day. I mean, next month will be 5 years streaming, and I'm just like, dude, I don't like that I do this. I need to start doing this. I actually have sticky notes now sitting on my monitor of like reminding myself of things, and it's actually super helped. And something that I know, and this is very much part of this topic, I know that Cole used to do a lot, which is you would go through goals before this, like as the stream was starting, and giving chat a feeling of being part of the stream and saying, hey, these are the goals we want to hit today. We're going to refer back to this more throughout the stream. And I before I get into it, can you talk a little bit about that and the strategy behind what it's like to get them more engaged?
Well, that example in particular was kind of that was never meant to be like an engaging thing. It was just one day the desk I ended up buying at one point was like a whiteboard desk that you can write on. Because I was like, oh, this will be cute. We'll be able to play games with chat. We'll play like tic-tac-toe and stuff. So I would like point a camera down to it. And one day I got on stream and I was like, all right, guys, this is the stuff that we're going to take care of today. I'm going to keep you guys accountable. We're just, making a joke and stuff. And it turned into a daily thing. Because as it turns out this is going to get into like human psychology. So I'm not going to like go super hard into this because it's crazy. But basically the way that humans work is we always want to feel like we're accomplishing something, right? It makes us feel good, right? It's that dopamine hitting the back of your brain.
Gamification.
And not just you as the streamer. Yeah, gamification. Not just you as a streamer, but every viewer, everyone out there wants to feel like they're getting something done. And watching a stream is no exception to that. So it turned out that by like creating these little like task lists, task lists, words are hard, for chat at the beginning of the day, and like literally turning the camera over and marking one off and be like, guys, we knocked this one out. Congrats. Here's 5 gifted subs or whatever. By doing that, you're rewarding people, right? Just for being there and participating and having a good time. And that turned out to be a really, really, I'm going to call it like a nuanced success. I wouldn't say it was like something that made some huge splash or made a huge difference. Like people aren't out there copying that or anything like that, but it worked for me. And it was really successful in my mind because it made people, without a doubt, feel more engaged and more in tune with the community and with myself.
Yeah, I think nobody's copying that. Absolutely not. No, nobody's copying that.
Yeah, because no one really thinks about that kind of stuff, right? Like, and it's not that big of a deal, but it could, like, little stuff like that builds up.
No, I'm saying like that. I'm copying that.
Oh, whatever. Whatever. You're getting me on a rant.
I'm gonna do it now.
Legitimately, Sir's rant. No, because legitimately, I watched you do that several times, and the reason I even know who you are was because some people came into my chat. It was probably who would it have been? Straws probably. That came into my chat and was like, "Hey, so there's this guy. He's new to Twitch. He's been streaming for like 6 months now. But his big thing is he's very into engagement, and he feels like he's very positive and clean, and it'd be great for your team on the lounge." And I was like, well, okay, we'll bring him up to Simcopter and see what happens. And then like it took a little bit, and because I checked out your stream a couple times, like, okay, great. And then I started watching more and more, and then I started seeing things like this pop up more, and I was like, wait, not many people are thinking about some of these things. They're thinking about, hey, I'm going to put an entertaining broadcast on, which is very much what you're supposed to do and what I was seeing in your channel. But the biggest difference was I felt, even without chatting at all in the chat, I felt like I was part of it and more than just being entertained by it. And it sparked a few things of like, yeah, this is exactly what I've been wanting to do with my stream for a long time, but I didn't really know how yet. And I think that's rather common. So that thought and being able to say, hey, let's do stuff together without you having to be in a game with me was huge.
Yeah, that point right there that you're hitting is, if there was ever a secret sauce, man, that is it. Is making people feel like they're participating when they're not.
Mhm.
Like it is so many people skip over that one point. And I think I legitimately think it's like, I really do. I think it's the secret sauce of Twitch, right? Like you can see Twitch building features around this now, like Hype Train and everything else. The idea of making people feel like they're a part of something greater than themselves, regardless of the actual engagement itself, will result in more engagement, because it's about the thing that is greater than, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a long conversation we could get into with that, but I think that's probably one of the biggest critical pieces that people miss. Like, when people say make good content, they say, okay, well, what is good content, right?
Right.
And if we were to ask ourselves that question, like start listing things off, we'd all have different responses to that. But I think that's one of the things that should absolutely be there.
Well, it's a nuance for sure. It's definitely a nuanced feature. But I mean, you brought up the hype train, and this is what I'm talking about. There's so many products out there that I think just miss the mark. I think the hype train misses the mark on engagement, because while it gets people to engage, possibly if they have like bits lying around, or they want to buy bits or buy subs or whatever it is, but you have to actively engage in that. You don't just feel like you're just part of it by just being there, because you don't get any emotes if you don't spend 100 bits or more. You don't really get anything at all. You get nothing out of it other than maybe watching somebody get excited for a little bit because of a hype train. It's like, oh, it's cool, I was there and I saw this, but at the same time, I didn't get anything out of it because I didn't participate. I didn't actively participate, even though it seems like the whole goal is to get people to participate. So I feel like things like that sort of miss the mark. Would you guys agree with that?
I mean, I thought it missed the mark in that, like, you couldn't really choose what the reward was. Like Twitch just created their own designs and then like gave them out, and I was like, cool, I hate this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
Thanks, I hate
it. Yeah. It does seem like a little bit selfish, right? Like the people that are going to get involved are there for like selfish reasons, like, oh, I'll get this reward. When I don't think that that's like how communities work on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
I think like one thing that's so beautiful about like gift subs is the fact that you're giving to somebody, and then somebody else that like maybe is not talking or like wouldn't ever engage in that way is like, oh, hey, thanks so much. And then they start using emotes or something. Yeah. So I think that's kind of where they miss too.
Yeah.
I think that is it. Like, I don't even think that's where they I don't think that's a part of it. I think that right there is it.
Yeah.
The thing is, and this is where a lot of people who make tools, like, this is what they do. They focus on what can we give to the streamer so that they can give to their audience, right? Or like, what can we give that's already available that we can give to their audience to make people more engaged? And I think that's like, that's where it all falls apart, I feel like, because like at the end of the day, emotes and like fancy little pictures in chat and stuff, none of that really matters. Like, Twitch was here long before emotes were ever a thing, right? And it was blowing up long before emotes were ever a thing, right? And we need to figure out why that is. And I can't say a whole lot about this because I'll be saying way too much, but I think the thing that we need to consider when we're talking about stuff like this, or when people are building tools, or like Twitch should be considering this, probably not, is that we need to be giving things that empower the broadcaster, the person who's creating the content, to allow people to engage with the content itself, not with some little feature or some little product that is on the platform or whatever it is, right? Like that's where I think we're having this huge disconnect, right? Because like at the end of the day, as a viewer, I don't care about these fancy emotes and stuff. Yeah, I like having my streamers emotes, that's cool. But unlocking all these extra ones, that doesn't make me feel like I'm a part of something. You know what I mean? And you can tell, like with the hype train, it's artificial, right? Like they're trying to force you to feel like you're a part of it. You're a part of this thing now. Accept it. Like, that's what it feels like. And I think that's where it misses the mark. Like, 100% agree with you, Pods. 100%.
I think that, like, so giving emotes, is giving emotes out like that is like it's like people who collect stickers, right? It's like, oh, I enjoy collecting stickers, but most of the time it's not I'm just not fully, I love collecting stickers, but that's also just not me. That's not what defines me. It's just, it's a hobby. I like to do it. And that's kind of what giving out emotes kind of feels like. It's like, oh, I have this new emote because I was part of a hype train and did a couple of these things and cool. But again, you don't really wear it as a badge of honor. And even shifting it over, well, I don't think this is a perfect like solution, but where were the like why did we give out emotes instead of actually giving people badges in chat that were like, hey, I was part of this and I now wear this forever, and or I can change it if I wanted to, but I now wear this. It's not something that I just post whenever I want to. Because I'd be probably pretty surprised if people just don't post the streamers emotes instead of the hype train emotes. Because it's not forcing.
I feel like customizable badges will be coming at some point in the future. That just seems like something that Twitch will do. But the problem is like per Twitch's MO is it probably won't be very customizable. That'll probably be some criteria or something that you have to meet, and it will only be like an extra bit badge.
Right.
So right. It would be cool if you could though. It'd be great.
Because I've seen there's a train badge in some channels where it's the current like engineer of the train or whoever started the last train, whoever supported the most in the last train gets a badge, and then it becomes more of what I think we've been seeing a lot, which is these are the top people that give to you, instead of putting everybody kind of on maybe the same playing field and say these are the people that are engaging. These are all the people that are engaging in something, rather than these are the top dogs with the biggest EP, right?
Right, like where's the badge for like top chatter,
right,
or like longest follower? I mean, I guess the first sub thing, like the founder badge, is a way to do that, but it's still money related.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I think everything is driven around direct short-term money goals versus, if I've learned one thing from SirSlaw, is engagement and long-term thought on engaging your audience will just naturally go into more subs, more bits, more tips, more everything. But it's also because it's not really at the forefront of what you're doing. It's maybe secondary, sometimes even tertiary, because the forefront is you actually providing a show that makes people feel like they want to come back to it.
Yeah, that's well said. I think that's one of the biggest things that a lot of people kind of get confused on is like, yeah, at the end of the day, as a streamer, especially if you're full time or you're trying to make a living at, you want to be able to, make money and pay your bills, right? And so it's hard. You have to find a way to balance like how much is money driving some of these decisions, right? And for me, it was an easy call to say, well, at the end of the day, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, I have the statistics to prove it with my channel that if I work on engaging people, right? We keep using this word, and I hate that we use it so much, engaging, because I know that people listening are like, what is that really? But I'm going to use it for now. I know that engaging people is going to result in me being able to pay the bills at the least. I know that because it's worked for 6 months, 9 months, a year, 2 years, whatever, right? And I feel like a lot of people kind of lose sight of that, and as a result, you get a lot of burnout and things like that. But I think that's a really important distinction that you're pointing out, is that the long-term play is way more valuable than the short-term play, because it means you're going to make better content, and it means the content's going to be more genuine, which is really important.
Yeah, and when it comes to the management side of a content creator, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, again, Pods, like, isn't your strategy to make sure that your clients can continue to create content rather than, let's just have one big year. Let's have one really huge year from our top client, and if they fall off the map after that, who cares?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, we are trying to make sure that the client and the sponsor stay happy, so that way they can have a relationship for multiple years and have careers. Like, if we just wanted to get somebody the most money possible, then we would, make all these crazy promises, have crazy rates, like have these sponsors pay all this amount, they would get all the money, and then no one would want to work with them in a year.
Right.
Which would suck.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you have to constantly be protecting your brand and protecting your community, because they're the ones that got you there, and they're going to be there at the end of the day. Like, a sponsor will come and go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is important, I think, for those listening to, I think, not feel ashamed to talk about the fact that, you know, subs are what keep you going, tips are what keep you going, and stuff like that. Because I feel like in this conversation, I think it's very easy to get confused with, well, because of all this engagement, because of this long-term need and want for a wide variety of engagement and talking to each other and creating a community, that it's hard to talk about, hey, you can subscribe and I get to, you know, that comes to me, it supports the channel and stuff like that. Because I do feel like there's a lot of people that are ashamed of it because they don't want it to sound like the same thing we're talking about, hype trains. They don't want it to sound like, oh, it's just an instant beg for money. It's just an instant beg for new subs and stuff like that. But at the same time, can it get engaging in a way to say, hey, this is what happens, this is the reality behind the whole thing, and maybe being honest or transparent? Or does it have to be, you just have to say, hey, that's a thing, you can do it if you want? I mean, where's the line, I guess, kind of appear in a way? I don't really know what I'm asking. What am I asking? One of you guys correct me.
I think I know, but in my mind, it feels like that this is going to be different for everyone, right? Like, in order to delineate, I guess, what is too far, so to speak, or what is, right? Because it's all objective. What is scummy, right? What is selling out? What is all this, all these potentially negative things? At the end of the day, it depends on the creator, and it depends on the impression that they leave with their audience, right? Because if I'm having my community believe that, you know, I'm a super genuine guy, and I think I had someone, I'm going to literally steal what some toxic person in my chat said years ago. I had my chat believe I'm this super genuine guy, but in reality, I think they're all just walking ATMs, right? Like, that obviously is bad, you know? But if you make sure everyone's aware on the front end that, like, hey, I'm doing this to survive, I'm doing this to feed my dog or whatever, is it even the same thing anymore? I don't think it is. People just have to be aware of, they have to be aware of what they're spending their money on and what they're spending their time on. You know what I mean? Like, there can be no deception with communities. And I feel like most good quality Twitch streamers, which is most of them, I think, typically fall within this. There's not really that many that are super scummy, you know?
Yeah. I think, so first point, do you think transparency is a type of engagement?
Yes. Sort of. It's a symptom. Like, transparency is a type of engagement the same way bourbon is a type of liquor, right? Like, it's all, that's a weird analogy, but it's all like a, I don't know what you call this thing. It's just like an atmosphere, the vibe you give your community. I don't know what that's called. There's a word for it though, if you follow me.
Yeah, no, I do. And I guess the reason I use type is because I guess it's something that you don't have to do. It's not something that's required. It's not something that is mandatory for engagement, but I feel like it can be a part of it. It's one of those optional things, the way, like, being transparent in the same way of saying, well, this is what's happening, this is real. I do this for a living. I spend all my time doing it, basically. And unfortunately, if there's no, if there's no money coming in, I can't do it. That's just how the world works. But obviously, everybody chooses the words and how they say that differently.
I think that the problem with that happens, like it's cool to be transparent, and I think you'll see your community like come rally behind you. But like, let's look at the flip side. Like, what if you were a super successful streamer making thousands of dollars a month? Would you still be that transparent, or would you have to like go through this shift?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
That's an interesting point.
I think that's where the disconnect comes with a lot of people, because they see, I know I've seen it, where you see these large streamers who just have subs coming in the whole stream, the entire stream. There's a sub it may not be every second or every minute, but pretty consistent. And that's other streamers watch bigger streamers for the most part. And if they keep watching that, they say, well, if this person's not doing it, that's that automatic disconnect a lot of the time is, oh, that's how they become successful, because they don't talk about it, so nobody feels like they're shilling out for money or anything. So that is sort of the disconnect for a lot of maybe newer streamers or streamers still trying to figure it out. So this is why this point kind of sticks with me, is like, that doesn't mean that okay, that is a type of reminder for the chat. Is it because it happens so much they can see it happening and they can say, oh, I can do this? But if it's not happening, a lot, sometimes it's up to maybe a broadcaster to say, well, hey, this is what's going on. You following me? Is that the same? Is that what we're talking about here?
I follow. I also just want to make an interesting point, or at least I find these conversations fascinating, but it's cool to me how, the intent was to go in here and have this conversation about engagement, but it feels like a lot of it is revolving around sort of like the monetary stature of like streams, which is not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like that means that there is some sort of undercurrent, right?
It's
like
what all the businesses talk about, so it's what we think about all the time.
Sure, yeah, and obviously like capitalist society, right? Like we have to pay.
Yeah.
So it makes sense, but like this is an interesting undercurrent, and it may be that a lot of people, either consciously or subconsciously, do equate like revenue in some way to engagement, right? I haven't explored this like myself a lot, so I don't know if I have a lot to say about it, but I find it interesting, so I'm noting this. Sorry, tangent.
No, I'm just saying, like, that's a great point, because there's not many things you can necessarily quantify when it comes to engagement, right? Because you can't quantify feelings. You can't quantify the feeling of saying, well, I felt at home. You can poll people, which is free, which doesn't have anything to do with money, but you also don't know if that poll will engage with everybody. You don't know how many people will engage with that poll, and you might have people who engage with your content that don't touch the poll, and that's a whole different thing. You don't know if they're truly being honest, or what numbers are fudged, or what's going on there. So it's, the one thing you can quantify is how much money does it generate. And that's very easy to understand.
You just nailed it, actually. Like I could nod my head so hard it'll fall off my shoulders. I think you nailed that. There's no way to quantify engagement. Like we said at the very beginning, everything should be taken with a grain of salt, because we don't have any like hard statistical evidence to validate a lot of this on Twitch, because it just doesn't exist. And that may be why the conversation goes back to that, is because money is the only, like, it's a number, right? It's something we can point to and say this is going up or this is going down, right? Interesting point.
I do have some sort of theory that, like, the new like channel points feature. How a little box will pop up and it'll say like, click to get this bonus. Like, I don't ever use those channel points, but I see that box come up and it's blue and it's like standing out against my dark mode, so I gotta click it. Like, I really think that that's just Twitch checking on like who's still here, like who just left the stream on your monitor, and who's like actually like clicking it.
If they were smart, they'd be tracking that.
I'm curious.
Right? Yeah.
Why don't you click on that, Pods?
Why don't I? Or why do I?
Why? You just said you don't. So, like, do you know?
No, I click on it.
Oh, you do?
I don't use the channel points like for like emotes or highlighting message or anything, because like whatever.
I guess that's the question. If you see no use in it, because I'm the same way. If you see no use in having the points, what makes you click on it? Is it literally just visual?
Yeah, it's blue. And it's like, it has like a little motion, like shaking, and like I gotta click it. Maybe it's also like a game, like it's like telling me to click it, so I'm clicking it.
I just clicked the one on StreamerSquare and it said +10 and had a little animation, so it feels like progress of some sort. It's
like you did something good.
Yeah, that dopamine release.
Yeah,
it's exactly what that is.
Yeah, you have to be careful getting into like the gamification argument or conversation with this, because that is like the deepest rabbit hole on earth.
Yeah,
because gamification has been around for a hot minute now.
Yeah,
not a lot of people touch it on live streaming, and it's only very recently come up on live streaming. There's a lot of stuff you can get into with actual gamification of content.
I was hired at a government job. I won't say where or when or how, but I was hired at a government job when I was studying computer science to develop designs for gamifying their meeting schedules and their business type things that were about what they were doing. And I'm like, so they were, I mean, at that point, that was, I don't know, years ago, before I even started streaming at all. And yeah. So that's just to point out that people have been thinking about this for a while, but because of that, you may not even know why you're doing things, and it might be because of that theory.
Yeah, I agree. Like it's a subtle thing, man. It's a very subtle thing. Like we were saying earlier about my task list at the beginning of every stream that I used to do. That most people don't think that's gamification, but it definitely is. Like it's progress, right?
Well, there's a whole community episode about it with Meow Meow Beans. If you haven't seen it, Dan Harmon does a really good job at talking about this very topic. So that'll maybe show you a few things that is in the very funny comedy world as a good explanation. Comedy is always a great explanation for a lot of these things. But we have a couple of questions in chat. We got about like 14 or so minutes, so I figure if you guys have questions, please ask them. We'll get through them as best as we can. So Chef Hazmat talks about, do you see the hype train going away within the next year due to the fact not many streamers seem to like it?
I don't think that like streamers hate it enough for it to go away. It seems like somewhat passive. I think that they could improve it before they would just scrap it. But it's probably making money, so no, they won't get rid of it.
Here's the thing. Well, this is ultimately like we're gonna go back to a different conversation, but hype train is even if it doesn't work. Let's assume that like it doesn't increase engagement, it doesn't make more money. The bottom line is it's going to look like it does because they're going to see surpluses in people subbing and gifted subs, and even if the overall stuff doesn't change and they're still making the same amount of subs and Twitch is still pulling the same amount of money, Twitch is going to say, okay, well now we can control when that happens, right? So the hype train's not going to go anywhere. They have more power now as a result of it. It may change, but I don't see that. Just don't see that going anywhere. I don't know if you can even turn it off. Can you?
I think you can turn it off.
Okay.
Somebody confirmed for that. I think you can turn it off. I know that I set mine to pretty difficult, so we don't see it in my chat very often. So it takes quite a bit of people going absolutely nuts for that to happen, but it has happened before. So, but that very much that limited it, at least for the most part, limited to how many times that happens per week, per month, per year, etc. And who knows, those in the background, because it doesn't say really the hard number of what that means. It just says like, oh, would you like it to be easy? Would you like it to be semi-difficult? Would you like it to be really difficult to get those? And it just kind of goes with that. I'm sure there's like a sub message underneath that kind of outlines it, but I don't think it's that specific. And but yeah, I mean, like you said, there's no way to track if it's hurting, right? There's no way to say, oh, this is hurting people's streams and this is hurting our bottom line, so we'll just get rid of it. So with that, there's no reason to get rid of it because, yeah, like you said, they have more control over it. Good point by Skomar is hype trains came out right around the time the financial statement came out for Twitch that they were under their mark. I feel like it's a way to drive them to make more money.
Yeah, I mean, most everything would be, I feel like. I mean, it's Amazon at this point. They got to make money.
Twitch is always...
They're all about the margins.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're always trying to do. I don't know if there's a correlation with that, but I know that, I've been to Twitch many times to talk about how that hopefully they can make more money and stuff like that. But again, it's gonna take the thought of engagement and past just literal click-throughs or just literal I have to spend money here to actually think about engagement a little bit further to, I think, accomplish this goal. Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it. For me as a viewer, I feel the authenticity of being a little bit more transparent adds to the engagement. Specifically, I think it cements and adds the connection I have with X streamer in their community. I think it's a good point. I think it's something that totally just it hits the nail on the head of what exactly I think most viewers really think, even if they don't think it consciously.
Yeah, I know the way that I run my channel, like I am very transparent and I want that connection. You just have to be careful if you're a streamer that doesn't want that. Because your community and viewers and whatever, they are going to feel connected to you. They are going to feel like they're a part of your life, and like navigating that, especially as you grow, gets a little bit tricky. So So like you always hear these stories of like how viewers like end up at people's houses or like they end up like stalking that streamer, and it's like I know that's an extreme, but
Right.
if you're at some point, you know, you're like marketing yourself as a friend to the community, but like where does that line draw?
Right. Well, so there was this, you know, this big streamer Twitter rages a lot. And there was one where there was a lot of people talking about and literally quoting word for word, almost became a meme essentially, which is, you could probably put the clap meme in there too, which is essentially streamers are not therapists. And that actually irritated me quite a bit because I'm sitting there going, well, any streamer that thinks they're a therapist probably is going to create a toxic environment no matter what. But the thing is, I don't think there's many streamers that think they're therapists. That doesn't mean you can't just listen, right? Listen to somebody in chat. Or I mean, the line is pretty clear in my opinion. You're not telling anybody how to live their life. You're not giving direct advice on exactly what they need to do. It doesn't mean you can't sit there and listen to somebody. Nobody's asking you to be their therapist. They're kind of asking you to just be there. You don't even have to be a friend, but just be there. And I think that kind of got overlooked in that conversation, or at least I didn't see the responses that answered those questions. And I think that listening part is engaging to a lot of people. And saying, hey, I was able to vent my frustration here. I was able to talk about the things that may or may not be going in my life, not with personal details or anything crazy, but you were able to sit there and listen, because quite often engaging with your community is not saying a word, but just listening to them and saying, hey, I feel you. You're having a rough day and I hope it gets better.
Yeah, totally. You're like, hang out here, you know?
Right.
I don't really know like how to help you or what you need, but we can play some games. We can hang out.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. Being a supportive person in a community who also just happens to be the central reason why said community might exist. Right. There's a lot of people that just may bring a positive light to people and really not have to do too much about it. Not really have to figure out, hey, I have to play games with this guy because, well, he's having a rough time. Like, I have to actually go out of my way to make sure this person's doing well. It's like nobody asked you to do that. Literally being there and staying engaged and building something together is what helped people do that. Very quickly, because I just kind of remembered. So, obviously, not to get into too much detail, Cole, about some of the tools that you've created, like the houses system, for instance. What was sort of the mindset of engagement when starting to build that for the first time?
I mean, the entire premise of like, this should be the premise of most engagement tools, but it's not. But for me, it was effectively trying to facilitate an environment through a toolkit or whatever, facilitate an environment where people felt like their time was a currency, because it is. When people spend time with you, they're spending time. We have a limited amount. It's very much a currency. And I wanted people to feel like that was being used well. And I think that was the big thing for me, was driving home the point that I am appreciative of what you're giving me here, which is just time. Like, it's a very simple thing, and we kind of look over it, like, thanks for spending time with me. Sometimes we'll say that, et cetera, et cetera. But I really wanted to focus in on that. And I think, honestly, everything that I've really built has had that at some critical piece a part of it. Just because it feels like that's what most people miss, is it's just sort of taken for granted at this point, is trying to make people feel like their time is valued. Because at the end of the day, like, you can be a streamer with 100,000 people watching you. There are ways you can make every single person watching you feel like their time is being valued, right? Instead of just saying, hey, thank you for the sub, thank you for the sub, thank you for the sub, or whatever. There are ways that you can do that with your content. And most people don't really know how to do that or understand that even should be done.
Right. Yeah. So for those that are not familiar with the houses system, I didn't even explain it. The houses system is a piece of literal. It's a chat bot essentially, but it is something that is more than that. It's more than just something you see on screen and something you see in the chat. But there's 3 different houses. They all are technically competing against each other, and people are getting points like Cole was saying about time, just being there. Being a follower, a new follower to the channel, hosting the channel, and just being there and accumulating these points. And then there's events that happen, and every now and then you get to use those points to then be part of that. And if your house wins said event, then you get more points back for your house. But everything you do is for the betterment of the community rather than just yourself, which is what I think what interested me the most when I first saw it, which was I'm not there just to make myself better, just to give myself more points or whatever it might be. Some people still, I think, thought about it that way. It was in my channel. That's why I have a little bit of experience on it. Some people thought about that. It's like, oh, I need to accumulate the most amount of these points so that I can destroy this boss, this dragon, by myself. But for the most part, everybody turned and actually looked to each other as like, who's part of this house? Yo, we got this many points. We can all do this together. Let's be part of this. And then it became the chat engaging with each other, which I think is something we didn't touch on that I think Cole and I have talked about in private a few times, but that became probably the most important part of how I define engagement, which is I'm there, but I'm also part of the community. Instead of everybody watching me, which is basically what streamers are, everybody watches a central location, but it's more like they're the head of a community, but we're all part of it. And getting the people to engage with each other was huge. So advice for people out there, and obviously start thinking about your guys' final advice. Advice for everybody is to make sure everybody feels included in the same thing rather than everybody just feeling included into just engaging with you directly, because while they do want to do that and they want to be there for you, and a lot of people may just only want to be there for you, encouraging them to engage with each other and finding ways to do that goes miles beyond just focusing on yourself. So to close it out, I don't know if we have any more questions in chat. SirSlaw, PodsofWar, do you guys have any final notes on engagement, or just pure notes for how people can maybe improve them as a person in the industry? Because I didn't tell you guys at the top of the show, this show is about the industry in general, not just streaming, not just viewers, but everybody in the gaming industry.
Pods, you go first. I don't know.
Okay.
Oh, you don't have to have anything.
Give you some time to think about it.
No, of course. Take your time.
Okay, all right. I have something, but it's going to be slightly long-winded, but not super bad. Because someone in chat said something that caught my eye a while back. They might have been being humorous, but someone said, watch since the beginning. I still haven't figured out who's getting. I think even if that is sarcastic or whatever, I think that's actually really important to think about for a moment, because you just touched on it, is that engagement is not just about engaging the audience, right? It's also about engaging yourself. Because if you're not having a good time and if you're not enjoying yourself, you're not invested in this in some way, then your audience won't be either. And I think that's a really, really important thing to make. In fact, I would argue that like one of the core critical pieces upon which a lot of these, these engagement tools or whatever are built upon is by making each person feel engaged separately. Like it's a set of different relationships almost, right? It's the creator to viewer relationship, right? It's the viewer to content relationship. It's the viewer to viewer relationship. It is the viewers, plural, to viewers relationship, group to group, right? And I think all of those are very important when it comes to talking about engagement. And that gets us a little bit closer to defining what engagement is, because we did not do a good job of doing that so far. But I don't even know if you really can, again. But I don't know. I think that's really important, is defining who you're trying to engage. It's like your objective, right? And at the end of the day, I think that should be all of those different groups, those relationships.
So you would say the first thing that people want to do is actually figure out who they want to talk to. Who are they? Yeah.
What's your objective?
Community? Without even having a community, who's your community?
Yeah, it doesn't even matter why you're trying to engage. You have to figure out who it is you want to engage with first. Who is your community? Why are you invested? Why are they going to be invested in you? How can you facilitate that? And why are they going to be invested in each other? Which is a very important point.
Awesome. I love it.
I hope I bought you some time, Pods.
No, I think I want to touch on just like a little bit of the social media aspect, because that's kind of where I grew more so. like there's a lot of people that haven't come to my stream, but they've seen me on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, or like in a freaking GameStop store. But like the way that I made my name in streaming and also the industry was just by like helping people and focusing on the other person that's on the other side of the stream or screen, because I really feel that like what people are trying to do on Twitch is to connect and express themselves, even if they're not streaming, even if they're viewing, because they do have a chat there. They can say something. And sure, there are the lurkers, but ultimately everyone feels good with like a little bit of attention. So that's always been my focus, is like, how do I give the other people attention? For me, it's been having those conversations on Twitter. Like, nothing grinds my gears more than what like a person that posts a question on Twitter to get engagement, gets all these replies, and then doesn't respond to the replies. Like, that just drives me crazy because it seems like you're just like looking for like an artificial number instead of like actually what I consider engagement. It's like a conversation. You know, I have my DMs open on Instagram because, you know, every now and then I'll pick 1 to 3 people and just have a full conversation with them.
That's a good idea. I like that.
It's like, I'm not doing it for selfish reasons, but yesterday I was talking to somebody who casually mentioned that his wife works at Disneyland and he could sign me in. And like, now I could go to Disneyland. Like, that's super cool.
When are we going to Disneyland, Pods?
Next month, I guess.
Cool.
You are up there now, aren't you?
I'm like 40 minutes away, yeah, ish.
Nice. So yeah, that's like that's always been my goal. Now the issue there is making that scalable, because like I'm even at a point where like that's overwhelming and I can't talk to as many people as I want to. So like you touched on, Dan, like getting them to talk to each other now and creating that community is now the hard part.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to, like, you are the center, but you're not going to be around 24/7.
Mm-hmm. And you can even like, yeah, I think SirSlaw did this very successfully. And hear me out before you think I'm insulting you. You can kind of become the comedic enemy of the chat, right? Become the person that everybody makes fun of or talks about, but jokingly, obviously, not harmfully. But everybody just becomes this. Well, words are hard, right? You have an emote. You have an emote about that, which is words are hard, because everybody can laugh at the fact that you just didn't say something correctly or stumbled over a few words, and that is an easy way to say, well, they're all happy and talking to each other and having a good time together. I could be the, you know, maybe not the full butt of the joke, but kind of the butt of the joke, right?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I think a lot of people like will point to some of the stuff I did, like, the houses or whatever this other stuff is. I think one of the best things I ever did for my channel was I made myself the adversary. Mm-hmm. I made it so that everyone felt like when they came into my channel, they were going to come up against something they could beat. And I always tried to make it possible for chat to beat me. And that was so, so important. I cannot express to you the increase in engagement and fun and ridiculousness that happened as a result of just coming in and being like, all right, prove me wrong. Make me do 5 push-ups, right? Like, make me work for it, okay? And that was, I would highly recommend to everyone to try that in some way, figure out what makes that best for your content. Because it was one of the best things that I ever did in my channel, without a doubt.
Yeah. And you can be the opposite and have everybody absolutely love you because you're just so sweet and awesome and amazing, and you can be PodsofWar. Those are 2 different strategies, and I think they're opposite, but I think they're just as useful in either way. I think that we touched on a lot of things, and I feel like we can have 7 more episodes of this exact topic.
Probably.
But our time is up today. I think chat I pretty much answered. It's a very short answer of what Prendium asked, which is how important or influential is your mods in helping engagement. I mean, they're just as much as part of the community as you are. The problem is, or the difference is that they are the people that are probably there the most often, other than the streamer themselves. And if you're me, well, your mods know your bot way more than you do. So they're the people that help drive it, and they're also, because they're a name in chat, I think viewers feel equal to them, sort of, in a way. Obviously, there's a sword and everything, but feel like they can engage in the same way that they would with every other chatter, different from, is the streamer going to read my comment, right? So that's kind of the big thing. Fearless, I'm not answering that question. Oliver, no. If I answered that question, it would be giving credit to the fact that that question needed to be answered. It's not majestic. But the thing is, I appreciate both of you for coming on. Thank you so much for saying yes and to being my first guests on Dan's Stream of Thought, because, well, this show never has a plan, and we literally just pick a topic and run with it, and I think you guys did fantastic.
Yeah, this is fun.
I hope so. Thank you.
Thanks for having us on.
No problem. No problem. You guys are the best. Everybody in chat, do yourselves a favor. If you're listening to this afterwards, still the same favor. You can, and as you're watching on YouTube, or you're listening to it on the podcast form, please do yourself a favor and go follow SirSlaw on all platforms. Twitter is SirSlaw_. Don't worry about the other guy. I don't know who that is. I don't think anybody knows who that is.
I want that Twitter account.
And then follow him everywhere else. Basically, SirSlaw. He's the best. And he'll be doing some really cool tech stuff for online performance groups. So secretive that I don't even know, and I'm a client. So yeah, beware of that and check out that. Then do yourself a favor and go follow PodsofWar, especially here on Twitch, because she's streaming. And you can follow her on Twitter and ask her questions. As a senior account manager at OPG, she has lots of information on just streaming stuff in general. Maybe you're at a point where you think you need a manager. Maybe you want to ask her some questions. I'm assuming that's probably okay with her.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Ask her the questions. Ask her everything you got. So please follow them. They're great people. And then do that and follow StreamerSquare right here on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. I think that's it. There's also a Discord, discord.gg/StreamerSquare. If you ask questions in there, I have my own little channel there. You can ask me questions there, or you can ask questions about any of the other shows as well. This is live every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to get out of here. So thank you all so much. I've been Dan Otage. This has been Dan's Stream of Thought, and please have a wonderful rest of your day. See you, everybody. Bye.